My name is David Sisko. My pronouns are he, him, and welcome to my podcast, Wholehearted Voice Pedagogy. This podcast is dedicated to the art and practice of teaching singers. It is an extension of my book of the same title, which was released by Routledge Press almost like a year ago, July 2025. It's available on Amazon.com, Routledge.com, and anywhere you get your books. I'm going to kind of skip my normal preamble to the episode because we have a great one for you today. It dawned on me as I was finishing up this spring semester that, I already have my fall schedule, right? I already have my returning students signed up for their lesson time, albeit they may move around a little bit. My coaching students already signed up for lesson times. I've put the spring semester to bed, but I'm already looking at the fall. What syllabi am I rewriting? I'm going to rethink the format of this particular class I'm teaching. All of this stuff is already happening, right? And I think that that's the natural posture of a teacher within the life of academia, right? It's like, great, we've done that, and now we're moving on, we're looking ahead. And I think that makes sense. But I also think that it's really important for us to take a moment to look back. And so I reached out to a couple of my students who have graduated in the last year, just to see what the last year has been like for them. And so I just wanted to share with you some of their responses. It's a really great, some really great interviews. So much so that like one episode was not enough. So we're going to start here, and there's a part 2 coming down the pike. We're going to start today's episode with my former student, Josh Gaba. Josh is a New York City-based singer-songwriter known for his theatrically emotive performances and easygoing, down-to-earth presence. Originally from the Washington, D.C. area, he moved to NYC in 2021 to pursue music full-time, quickly finding a home in the more intimate stages of Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn. In 2024, Josh began writing for his solo project, making his debut at the Mercury Lounge in April 2025. He also serves as the lead singer for the band No Way Out, a psych grunge rock band with a new solo work and band releases on the way. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
It's my pleasure. I'm
Us.
so happy to be doing this.
That's so kind, and I'm very happy to see you. Because literally the last time I saw you was exactly a year ago,
Yeah.
right before graduation.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, we've kept in
Flew
touch,
by.
text a
Yes.
little bit here and there, but it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Um, so I just wanted to, as I said in my email, just kind of take your temperature a little bit and see like what this first year has been like for you since you graduated. What have you been up to?
Yeah. So, thankfully, a lot of music. That's the good news. Although it is pretty much all good news here.
Good.
Yeah. As you remember, I'm sure at the end of my time in undergraduate, I was starting my own solo career, and yeah, so I've been working on that a lot over the past year. Played a few shows. I'm working on, I don't know if you remember, but our my final capstone project was recording an EP. So yeah, by the time I graduated, it wasn't anywhere near finished, but I had basically the basic tracks done for that. So, like drums, guitar, bass. So yeah, I've been working on that a lot, and that's almost ready to get sent to be mixed and mastered and stuff. So, Gesundheit.
Thank you. Sorry, allergy season.
No, oh my God, don't even get me started. Um, my Zyrtex like eyeing me from across the room.
It's
Um,
okay. That's
yeah,
amazing. That's amazing.
yeah. So working on that a lot. I work at Radio City Music Hall as an usher, which has been just such a fantastic experience. I mean, from getting to see the Christmas Spectacular with the Rockettes to just now full swing into concert season. So um, a lot of really cool artists, comedians coming through. It's an awesome job. I also can pick up shifts at MSG and the Beacon Theater too, because I Radio City's owned by MSG. So yeah, that's been so, I mean, it's just an amazing, that theater is just incredible. And
Oh, totally.
being in that building is just such a privilege. And like, yeah, I mean, I remember one of my experiences that really made me want to really pursue music and study music in college really was when in high school I got to perform at the Kennedy Center and like just being in the build like being just stepping into the building for the first time. I was like, this is this is the kind of place I would want to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, that job has just been a blast. My band is still going strong, One Way Out. We were just recording last night a little bit. We were finishing up drums for our next record. So um yeah, that's we're still chugging along. Um yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's amazing. I love that. Good. Well, I'm so glad to hear that things have been keeping you busy, certainly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I was wondering, what has the adjustment been like from, you spend 4 years in a very specific, very scheduled academic life, and then kind of moving from that to, you know, y- I say early performing career, but like you've been performing with your band for, since you were in high school, right? So like, um, uh,
Yeah,
so
but yeah, sorry.
yeah, but still, you're still kind of like, this is from my aged place. You're still in that early career phase. I'm just wondering what's that transition like been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you specified the scheduled aspect of it. I think that yeah, I mean, just personally, first of all, I grew up um as early as elementary school. I was going to private institutions, progressive institutions. Um, yeah, elementary school, middle school, high school, but also not just my schooling, my summer camp that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, a lot of my life was sort of planned for me. I always sort of thought of myself as an ambitious, sort of go get it type of person, but at the same time, it's like the challenge was always presented to me and set up in some sort of way where, set up for me to succeed. But of course, because I was surrounded by such supportive environments, teachers, classmates, my parents. Um, but yeah, as I just said, it's like all those challenges were sort of neatly stacked up for me in a way that would never be too overwhelming or um, would really push me to see how far I could really go, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
it's like there were parameters already in place, as one
right,
would
yeah,
say.
there were
Yeah.
always parameters around everything I did. And so I think in the last year, this past year for me has been a lot of just self-discovery in terms of how how do I approach this challenge, whatever it is, and not only, you know, succeed and check all the boxes that need to be checked, but also do it as me, do it as Josh Gaba, do it, um, you know, don't just do it to check those boxes and say, "Hey, I finished the challenge and I know that I can do XYZ now because I've accomplished this." It's more than that. It's about who am I and what am I bringing to the table and what am I contributing to society and this world that is going to make a difference. I mean, obviously, I was creating a lot at NYU. Go to music school and you do that. Um, but yeah, it was always like that creation was always uh, with the end goal of, you know, this is for the class. And
Great.
that's like part of that is somewhat, I don't, my fault, like, there's a mindset. I saw a lot of students at NYU who were a lot better at saying, I'm already an artist and this is everything I create here and do now is part of me and who I am and who I will always be as a person and as a performer. I think for me, I just went into school and those things were just in my head a little more separated. It was like,
Hmm.
oh, I this is what I do at school. I mean, obviously singing and music is a huge part of my identity, but it was the aspect, I guess, of how you sort of put it, like the academic relationship um with music and singing and yeah, and studying it in the way that with like that NYU approach, yeah, like that, those things through my 4 years at NYU were somewhat separated in a way that I've had to like confront, I think, in the last year a lot because, um, when I'm putting a show together, uh, I'm way less like when I was at NYU, I feel like I was kind of constantly in this like play state, like constantly playing, which is awesome. That's like I think
Yeah, that's
so
good.
much of like what going to school for music is about. It's like playing around, seeing what works, what doesn't work. Um, but at the same time, that attitude for me, I think kind of more so bled into like oh, like everything I'm doing at this stage of my life is just a learning experience. So, like, I don't know, this sounds kind of funny, but it's like this almost doesn't matter. It's like,
It's not real.
right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So, when I'm like, have been putting, just because I graduated and just because I think of the way that I went through the mindset I went through undergrad with, like in the last year, I've had to think a lot about like, I've had to be more honest with myself and be more like, like I said, analytical for the purpose of putting a really good product out there and like I said, contributing something to my peers and this society that matters and
Mhm.
that makes someone feel, provokes a certain emotion from someone, um, and is not, I'm not just, getting an opener so that I can have an opener and get 10 more people there. Uh, like it's things are just more complicated than that in the real world.
Right.
And as I actually, you know, get on a real stage and, yeah, like I said, putting my product out there, yeah, so I'm just thinking about all those things in a slightly different way and maybe a more intentional way.
Hmm.
And a way that is very informed by like I said, that play that I did at NYU. That
Sounds
yeah,
like it's a big paradigm shift, right?
yes, Yeah,
it's just a very different kind of perspective. I mean, all of the work that you did at NYU, I think what I'm hearing you say is absolutely applies in this new kind of paradigm, but it's looking at it in a very different way, in a
right.
more intentional way.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, a more intentional way. Um, a way that is also become, I think this is just for me, but it has become more personal, because now I'm performing as Josh Gaba. I'm not like in this is in my head I'm talking about. I'm
sure,
performing as Josh Gaba now. I'm no longer Josh Gaba, the student at NYU. Um,
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Ah, love that. Thank you for sharing
yeah,
that. I think
yeah,
it is such a big shift, especially those kind of theoretical shifts, I think are some of the hardest. I mean, logistically, not having
yeah,
a schedule, per se. I mean, of course, you have a job schedule and things like that,
yeah.
but not having kind of the routine of school is,
Yes,
that's there too. But I love that you kind of went right toward the kind of you've kind of come into a new theory about who you are as an artist and what you want to say
totally.
as an artist, which is great.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What did you receive from your undergrad that maybe that you didn't expect?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, well, first of all, not to toot my own horn here, but I do something I'm proud of myself for, and that I am very glad that I did, and glad that it was something I tried to focus on, uh, coming, especially starting at NYU in the first year or so, really trying to keep an open mind, and be a sponge, and really just pick up whatever I could, learn as much as I could from all, as you know, I was singing my whole life, but really had very little interaction with other professional singers specifically who had been training their voice. Um, so yeah, I was just, I was thrust into this community of people who were in love with studying their voice and, talking about it and, understanding it. So yeah, I tried to keep an open mind as possible, and I was ready to soak up all this new information, but I would never have expected to reap as many benefits and rewards from the, I'll say, cross training that I did at NYU in like the traditional sense of like singing all different kinds of repertoire. Um, because that's obviously, if you're someone in the vocal performance program, that that's something the program stresses a lot, and I'm very glad that they do that. And, by the end of my 4 years, I've heard plenty of times that, it's kind of a broken record at that point of, like, yeah, we want you guys to be as versatile as possible. And, your ability to sing across styles and genres is exemplary of a solid foundation in technique, mainly. And yeah, so I just never would have like, I sort of knew going in that that was going to be part of it. I was going to be surrounded by singers that were different from myself, had different experience singing, but I never would have expected the way that I picked up on a lot of different techniques, studies that, that I use practically now. Um, yeah, it's really astounding. The thing that I frequently think about, um, is the class that I took freshman year on IPA and phonetics. And yeah, I remember going in for, as you know, I don't, and for your listeners, studying contemporary voice at NYU, myself included, but I'll say more so to my classmates. A lot of us were really, I guess, surprised, like, oh, why do we have to take this class? Is that, when is like when was Stevie Wonder, like, was he writing his songs and then like spelling them out in IPA? Like, I don't think so.
Thinking about his shadow vowels. Yes.
Right. Um, but that class taught me so much about, I'm not necessarily, oh, well, not necessarily, I am not, I'll tell you, I'm not, every piece of music that I do, I'm not spelling it out in IPA or,
Sure.
um, but the like the background knowledge that taking that class gave me on how, as human beings, we form vowel sounds and consonants in our mouths and in our vocal tract, and also like just how a writer or a performer can be intentional about that in the first place, and how that affects the song itself, but also regardless of what a songwriter wants, how it's performed on stage and how that affects the performance emotionally, technically. Um, so yeah, I'd say, and then also just to dive into it further, I mean, as I mentioned before, but the rep that I did, like the art songs that we worked on, um, and also musical theater stuff. You know, we did it all. So, um, I, my whole mindset on how I approach a song, uh, whether it's like learning a new song or even writing one, like it is deeply informed by all kinds of style and genre that, I never thought I would be in court. I could be writing a song and let's say I'm writing lyrics and I want, say there's a big note and I want it to be a big open vowel. And I think that I have a really good understanding of how to do that in a way that'll best serve me and my artistry. Um, but that is informed by all that cross training I did. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that is informed by me knowing, like, number one, vocally, what's the most efficient way to do this technically, and also what through, like, for example, the IPA class, like what result is going to get the thing that I actually want to hear in terms of the actual thing I'm saying and pronouncing. And then also artistically, how does the way I'm forming that vowel, um, and the way I'm using that vowel, uh, actually affect like the final product when I sing it and how it's vocalized.
Yeah.
And where it's placed and all of that. So yeah, I'd say I took away. I knew that coming into NYU, there I was gonna obviously learn a whole lot of stuff, but I never thought that it would be in such a. I never thought that I'd have such a diverse understanding of uh performance and writing, um than I do now because of my studies at NYU. I'm very grateful that it's a big focus of the program um, to create balanced singers who, as I just said, are extremely well informed and really know their way, not just around performing, but also how to talk to other people about different kinds of music. I mean, it's in New York, being a performer in New York City, there's so many different opportunities and so many different kinds of things and different kinds of people that you can work with. And everyone, based on their own style, genre, where they were born, has their different vernacular and, one person calls it a song, another person calls it a piece. And, it's like that diverse I got all of that. I met every single type of person at NYU, whether they were in vocal performance or in another program. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Last question for you. From your
Yeah.
perspective, how can voice teachers best prepare their students for a career in the industry?
Mm,
I know that's kind of a big question, but just wondering what kind of bubbles up for you.
yeah. I think that I think my answer to this is sort of related to what we were talking about before with just my last year being out of NYU and this whole experience of like rediscovering on my own, it feels like a lot of the things that I studied at NYU because I'm seeing it like we discussed through a new lens, a different filter. Um, in my experience at NYU, that was just so separated for me. It was like studying voice
Hmm.
versus what does this actually turn into when I leave this place? Um, so yeah, it's like I think in terms of the voice teacher, it's about uh, getting the wheels turning on that of what is this, what does this translate to? What do I actually want to do with this? Um, and I think something we did a lot that was along these lines that was helpful for me is like we would just talk quite frequently in like uh pretty clear terms like if you were singing this song for at this venue like this is the way you would sing it based on all these factors how would you sing this song um and a lot of like hypotheticals and us talking through that and um yeah, I guess it's just obviously the part you're missing in that voice lesson is the actual then
Experience.
yeah, but that like I think that's so important to the voice lesson is to say like let's at least talk about this in a real world scenario because this is all for that. This is to serve that. So
Right.
um
I think about that a lot about, yes, of course, our job is as educators, as voice teachers, is to, to teach and to give to share current information about the voice and help a student find the most sustainable and expressive way of sharing their gifts. But what you're talking about is context. it's saying, great, so there's that information, and I'm here to cultivate that, but I also need to help you develop a context for what this means in the greater world outside of these four walls of this institution, right? What
Right.
what what does that mean? And that's something I think about a lot. Is is how to do that. And sometimes as a teacher, I don't know how to do that. But I think what you're talking about is having those conversations is goes a long way toward. And just as someone who had the joy of watching you grow on your vocal journey, I also saw like there was a moment I feel like, especially in your junior year, where I was like, you can bring in the stuff you're doing with your band.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, we like, yes, we have like certain benchmarks on certain things we have to do, but like, I want you to bring
Yeah.
that in. Like, that's you, right? As
Yeah.
much as what we're developing here, right? And so, like, you realize and you're like,
Exactly.
oh, I can do these extra vocal things and I can do these things and
Yeah.
figure out how to do them, in a healthy way. And like, oh, like so from where I'm sitting, like you were absolutely on that journey.
Yeah.
In the certainly in the second half of your time at NYU.
Yeah.
But I love that it's, from what I'm hearing, from what you're saying, it's even blossoming further in terms of your
Yes.
understanding and again the context of it, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing I would just add is the obvious aspect of, unless you're taking voice lessons with someone outside, when you graduate, you're just like when you're at NYU in vocal performance, there's so many different people around you, and obviously including yourself, who are focused on your voice and developing you. Um, and that, I don't want to call it a burden, but that responsibility really shifts wholly onto yourself when you graduate. There's not really anybody, checking in with me every
Looking over
week.
your shoulder.
Yeah, yeah, looking at my practice journal to say like, oh, what have we been working on this week? So, but what I was gonna say is like, that was the other part of our voice lessons that I really appreciated and I think are is incredibly necessary for the voice teacher to create in the studio is also those discussions about how how do you do this on your own? How like let's talk about you starting your next practice session. Um, let's just walk through it. Let's talk through it. And like if you encounter this problem, what are you going to do about it? Um, so yeah, I think that was the other piece of that. It's just like super practice, e- every time I practice, you're David Sisko's in there somewhere, telling me,
God help ya.
uh, yeah, but yeah, like I think that's how I like that journey that I described sort of in the last year of like rediscovering a lot of things that I studied at NYU, that I now feels like I'm sort of like relearning or like recontextualizing is largely due to be is largely due to the fact that I'm really good at, I think, navigating my own voice because of the way we engage with that in the lesson. So yeah, it's like, yeah, so I guess to bring it back to the question, it's like the voice teacher can best prepare that student by giving them the tools to be able to do it on their own. Which seems obvious, but like,
But and it's something again that I think about a lot because it's like it's obviously I love what I do. I mean, hopefully it's obvious. I love what I do, and it's nice to be needed. And I think
yeah,
as a teacher, I have to be so careful. I'm like, it is never about me. It is always about making sure that I am making myself obsolete.
Mm,
Right. So it's so yeah, that's why I really do try to ask people. So like I'm not there or like, "Oh, great, you're gonna warm yourself up, and I'm gonna watch you warm yourself up and
yeah.
then let's talk about what was that like?
Yeah.
And how are you doing that on your own when I'm not around? And
Yeah.
because as much as I would love to follow all of my students around and see what all the great things they're doing, I can't. So how do I, as a teacher, let go and
Yeah.
really encourage the student to find that on their own? Yeah. Well, I have to say I don't know how I ever got so lucky. I'm so proud of you and the
Thank
work you're
you.
doing in the world and yeah. So thank you for sharing this time with me and kind of
Of
sharing your
course.
great insights. It's very,
Of
very
course.
helpful. I know it's helpful for me, but I know it's going to be helpful to a lot of other voice teachers who are listening. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My next guest is Mariana Beauchamp. She is a multidisciplinary artist from Puerto Rico. She possesses a master's degree in musical theater performance and an advanced degree in vocal pedagogy from New York University 2025. And she's also a voice teacher and performer. Aside from her work as an educator, she is an independent artist and singer and songwriter. In her music, she explores genres such as indie pop, folk pop, and alternative styles, all centered around an acoustic and a Caribbean influenced sound. She writes about holding one's self, what we give each other, and this little thing called living. Mariana, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's my honor. And I just want to point out that this is not a green screen. Your background. You just moved to Puerto Rico.
I did, yes.
Moved back to Puerto Rico. You have family there, yeah?
Yeah, I was born in Puerto Rico and I moved to New York to do my master's degree at NYU, but I decided to move back because I felt that that was the best decision for me right now.
Sure. Sure. And so you've just moved back a couple of weeks ago, so you're just still kind of getting your roots.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm still getting my things together, but I feel like it was the right decision.
Good for you. Good for you. Well,
Thank you.
have been having such a great time reconnecting with all of you in the last couple of days for this episode, and I just wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about what you've been up to since you graduated, other
Yeah.
than obviously moving to Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Well, since I graduated, I kept teaching private voice lessons, which being at NYU helped me build that private voice studio and made me feel a little bit more confident in what I was doing. And I kept auditioning in the city and outside of it. And I also kept working on my original music as an independent artist.
Yeah, and that was something that you had been working on. I know all throughout your master's degree and even before. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about your work as a singer songwriter. What type of music really kind of speaks to your soul, and what's that process been like? Both approaching your work as a singer songwriter in while in school, and then and kind of out of it. How has it shifted for you?
I started releasing music formally before, like a couple months before starting my master's degree. I had already been accepted at NYU when I released my first song. So I feel like I didn't know necessarily a moment in which I wasn't already mentally a student. So doing it throughout my master's was really helpful because I felt that I could incorporate certain things technique wise and like um acting through song that helped and informed the way I performed my own things.
Yeah.
And after that, I feel like it's been a bit of a relief in the sense that I feel like I can spend more time doing it and like I can spend more of how do I say this? I feel like I have the space to be a little bit more creative and allow myself that time to disconnect from it as well without feeling guilty, like I should be doing some other things like school.
Sure.
So,
So I hear that you have a little bit more time now to show up for yourself as an artist
mm,
compared to obviously when you're taking classes and teaching, teaching lessons. And, I mentioned in my introduction to you that you did both your master's in music, in a musical theater performance, but also got your certificate in vocal pedagogy, right? So you were quite busy at school, right? Right.
yeah.
What do you feel like? So, other than maybe an excuse, New York City in the background with sirens, but other than the time aspect, have you noticed anything else maybe shift for you in terms of your experience of creating or performing as an artist now that you're out of school?
I think the biggest change I've felt being out of school is mostly how I perceive myself. So that's something I've talked about with other colleagues like Julia. It's difficult to see yourself outside of the student point of view. I am a student and I am studying this. So reimagining or renaming yourself as an individual who is not identified by what they're studying or going to school for has been something I have had to do to think very kindly and appreciate all I did, but also allowing it to be what it was and create my own image of myself now as an individual that is not necessarily tied to what they're studying, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's part of your individuation process, right? You're claiming your, I mean, and look, hopefully, obviously, we're always students, right? But it's
Right.
different when it's an actual degree program and you have certain things that you have to meet, but it's a big shift, isn't it? From having that mindset. Excuse my ignorance, did you do kind of bachelor's and master's right back to back, or
No, I taught for a year. So I taught general
well,
music in Puerto Rico for a year. And while I was teaching is when I was preparing for my auditions for the master's degree. So
great,
I
great.
did have the chance to kind of find myself outside of school,
Mhm.
but then I went to school again. And so I think I'm going back to that person, but that person is no longer there because that person is very different. So it's
Right.
kind of like a bunch of little discoveries.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, right? And I'm always fascinated about how those changes then influence our work as artists, right? Because we just have a completely different lens, and not only obviously, hopefully, technically, but also just in terms of our definition, our evolving definition of artistry, right? And that's fascinating. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. How do you envision your degree supporting the next steps of your journey, both as a performing and as a teaching artist?
Well, I feel like my degree has made me a more complete artist and teacher. And more than anything, I think it has given me the confidence to trust my knowledge and use it in my favor.
Mm.
And I think that that's one of the biggest things I've taken away from my experience doing the master's. I feel confident in what I say when I'm saying it to students and what I do when I'm doing it as an artist. So, yes.
That's a great answer, and I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful. What
Thank you.
is, and just to be really clear, not looking for like dirt or
Yeah.
anything like that, but like what did you maybe find challenging about your educational experience, not just at NYU, but just in general,
Mhm.
between undergrad and graduate school? Were there things that you that you found challenging in one way or another that maybe also shaped your vision of yourself as an artist?
I think that when I started doing my bachelor's degree in the University of Puerto Rico, the title of being a classical voice student was in part limiting, but I think some of that was self-imposed because I thought that I had to sound this way and perform this way and follow these rules to be the correct classical voice singer. And that kind of made me be very confused about my identity as an artist because I felt that I had to follow a rule book. So when I graduated, I had a clearer idea of who I wanted to be and how that didn't necessarily fit the standards that I had set for myself and that maybe I had seen in the industry when it came to classical voice. And so I decided to venture out to other programs that felt more like more attached or more tied to what I wanted to do as an artist. And that's where musical theater came in. But I think that these categories that we have to utilize when we create programs for teaching were also very helpful in the sense that they taught me that I didn't have to belong to one of them specifically to be the artist that I want to be. I don't have to necessarily exclusively be a musical theater performer to be the artist I want to be. I am allowed to be a musical theater performer, but also an artist and a singer-songwriter, and I can also sing classical voice. So I think that at first it was limiting, but now it's allowed me to understand how diverse I could be as an artist.
Yeah. And what a benefit to your students to have all of those
Right.
different types of experiences, right? And not just in terms of exposure, but in terms of like actually doing it in your own body, right? I think
Right.
is so powerful. And and yeah, that's a great answer. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
What do you feel like voice teachers can do to best prepare their students for this ever evolving industry? And this can be, private teachers working
Mhm.
independently, or it can be you can answer within kind of the auspices of academia or institutions. How do you think we as teachers can best support our our young artists?
I think initially having a student-centered teaching approach allow your students to be involved in designing their class, I would say. Hear them out, see them as an equal, and understand what their goals are as artists and as musicians, but also as individuals. So it could be a more collaborative approach to teaching. And I'd say also encourage students to stay curious in their work, meaning allow them to connect what they're singing to any cultural aspects or socially or even emotionally, to allow these students to contextualize the work into what's happening in the world or what's happened to them or what has happened in the past. I think allowing them to be part of the process and allowing them to understand that these works don't live in a vacuum, I think is essential. But also, you as a teacher, I always ask myself, how can I make this information that I am giving my student more accessible, and what I can do to help them out if they didn't understand what worked, what confused them, and how can I help them adapt this information into something, I guess, more digestible for them. Is that a
Yeah,
word? Digestible?
totally is.
Amazing. But yeah, and personally, I'd say teaching is also a learning experience, of course. So I'd encourage teachers to stay curious and staying open to learning from what their students are also giving them.
Oh, well, I'm so grateful for this time with you. Thank you
So am
so
I.
much for your insights and I'm in the show notes. I'm gonna link people to your IG and your website so we can all keep track of all the great things that you're doing in the
Thank you
world.
so much. It's been a pleasure. And I felt so honored when I received that email. I was like, no way, Professor Sisko wants me to be there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Of course, we all have, I learn so much from, as you said, we teachers learn from our students, and I love seeing how you and your class have boots on the ground of what's happening right now, and I need to keep learning from you. So thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much.
I hope you found these conversations as rewarding as I have. And as I said, there's more to come. There's a whole nother part two that's coming down the pike in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, I'm wondering how you were connecting with your alumni, with your former students. What are they doing out in the world? How can we continue to learn from them since they're the boots on the ground? If you have something you want to share, I want to encourage you to email me at wholeheartedvoicepedagogy@gmail.com, or you can find me on the socials. My handle on most platforms is at Cisco Songs or at Wholehearted Voice Pedagogy, and I would love to hear from you. More soon. Take care of you.